Well, everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland Reviewer, and welcome to Lost in the Wasteland, my weekly interview show where I get to learn a little bit more about somebody else's perspective on movies. And joining me is fellow SiftPop contributor John Tillyard. Thank you so much for coming on.
Hey Shane, it's good to be here.
Absolutely. Joining me from the UK, so afternoon for you, morning for me.
Yeah.
And lovely weather all around. That's always the fun thing. But
Yeah.
at least we're here to talk about movies. But before we do that, John, would you like to shamelessly plug anything and let people know where they can find any of your work?
Mainly just find me on Instagram. It's
Okay.
my name with the numbers 86 on the end. I also write for SiftPop. My most recent review was the Apollo 13 documentary on Netflix. And I think before that it was Howard and the Purple Crayon, a couple of my most recent reviews. You can find,
Very interesting dynamic, like
yeah, yeah, quite a
very
range,
different films.
different things. Yeah.
One of those I would highly recommend. One of them I would not. We'll leave that up to you to figure out which one that is. But let's dive in then. So the first two questions are kind of a bit mirrored of each other. But John, what's a film that's been previously released? So like a film that's been out and everything that you haven't watched before that you're most excited to check out.
I think if they ever did do a re-release of it, I would want to go see The Omen because I actually
Oh.
heard a lot of stories, people when that film first came out, about the kind of experience of actually seeing that in the cinema, the
Mhm.
sort of atmosphere and the tone of everything, and the way it was just kind of not like any kind of film anybody had seen before. So to just sort of maybe re-experience that a little bit.
And
Also,
it's time.
it's a film that's referenced so much, so I sort of feel like it's. I'd like to actually see these references in context to see what that's about.
Absolutely. And I feel like it's timely. It's October.
Yeah.
It's that Halloween season. And yeah, basically any movie that has like the Antichrist in it in some shape or form is probably gonna reference Damien. Like hell, South
Yeah.
Park even did that. For a whole entire episode. So like obviously there's a lot of cultural relevance to that film too. And I think that would be a fun time. I saw the first Omen in theaters earlier this year and ooh, it was eerie. And then it was like, hey, guess what? This is a prequel. You know, this is a prequel. And then it's like goes right into the first one. But, you know, tis the season. Horror.
There is
Now, oh, go ahead.
there is also a sitcom in this country called Only Fools and Horses, and later on in the series, the main character Del Boy has a son, and he calls him Damien, and his brother Rodney's constantly thinking he's basically the devil. Like anytime he says his name, Damien, it's sort of ominous music. And for a long time, I was like, "What is that about?" I just
I
didn't
feel
get it.
like that's cruel, naming a
Yeah,
kid Damien anytime after the late 70s when the
yeah.
Omen came out. But, you
Yeah.
know, still happens. So there you go. People haven't learned their lessons. Now, what's an upcoming film that you're most excited for?
Wicked, which comes out in a couple of months, actually. Have not seen the West End musical,
Okay.
so this might be a convincer for me if it ends up being a good film. That it would be worth seeing on the West End as well. Um, but yeah, I've heard sort of conflicting things about it. Actually, some people say it's really good. Some people think it sort of ruins the whole character of the Wicked Witch. Uh,
Well, she's not so wicked, is she?
yeah, that's the whole thing that people get confused about. It's like that's
Mhm.
not the Wicked Witch. I think that's the idea, guys.
It's
So
like
yeah, I'd be
that
interested
was
to
the
see
point,
how,
people.
yeah, if it works as a movie. I'd be interested to see how it compares to the musical, which I've actually not seen yet, but I do
Mhm.
plan to at some point.
I've heard some of the music from it. I've never actually seen the show itself, but like, grew up on Wizard of Oz. I even grew up on Return to Oz, the much
Uh,
darker, disturbing 80s version of Wizard of Oz. But
Definitely
like
dark.
definitely dark. But like I feel like this movie should have came out like 10 years ago when this was still like super popular because like Wicked was a thing. Wicked
Yeah,
was a
it's big.
super popular pop culture event. I'm glad that it finally has rolled around, and I would love to see the show. Because like, it has that interesting idea of like, what if things weren't so black and white? Because like honestly, you watch The Wizard of Oz, it's one of the most like clean cut, like good people, bad people. kind of story. It's that classic fantasy, but it's going to be interesting to see that and Gladiator 2 coming out the same weekend is going to
Oh
be
yeah.
a wild weekend. So now I know we all love remakes. Everybody talks so much about how they love remakes, especially sarcastically. It's a big uh complaint by a lot of people about how many remakes there are. But John, what's a film that you feel like actually deserves to be remade?
This might be a bit controversial actually, because I've heard a lot of people say in the past this definitely should not be remade, but I'm going to go
Uh-huh.
with Back to the Future. And
Interesting.
basically, what my envision for a remake would be to have a complete different cast of characters and have the character go back 30 years from now. So go back to like the mid 90s. And it could be like another sort of Stranger Things sort of thing. Of people are like, oh
Mhm,
no, all the 90s nostalgia the stuff. Because I
mhm,
think that's part of the reason why Back to the Future was a hit at the time. I think it was the Stranger Things of its time. People were
mhm.
nostalgic for the 50s. So I think it had that kind of appeal.
Well, I think there's enough appeal for that because plenty of things rip it off and
Yeah.
do the same exact thing. So, and yet it's gotten to the point where the 90s are a nostalgia point, which I don't like to think about, but
Yeah.
turning 33, it's like, yep, it's been 30 years. So, and I think that's one of the wildest things to think about too, is when you think of Back to the Future, it's like, wow, he goes back so far into the 50s from the 80s, and you're like, do the math. From now, that is the 90s, and you're just like, I don't like that feeling. Please stop.
Yeah.
So it is an interesting thing to really think about. Now, which also there would definitely be plenty of people who are very upset because like leave my Back to the Future alone.
Yeah. Yeah. True.
But
It will never happen. They will not
no.
do it.
Well, I wouldn't put it past Hollywood, so I'm not making that
I
statement.
think I actually have read Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale, the writers of the original movie. They are adamant that they not touch that franchise or do anything extra with it.
Well, that's okay. Robert Zemeckis, when you have no say anymore. Hollywood will pounce on that quicker than
Oh,
like a lion on a zebra. It's like
yeah.
good luck for that. But no, all things are open game at this point, I feel like, but no, very a lot of people would be upset if they tried to remake Back to the Future.
Yeah.
Now, John, in my first interview, I asked what's your earliest memory of going to the movies, but what's your fondest memory of going to the movies?
Um, this was actually a film I saw by myself, so this will seem a bit odd for it to be one of the fondest
Mhm,
memories, but it was just such a joyous thing. It was Endgame, uh,
mhm.
the moment where Cap grabs Mjolnir. It's like the whole theater just erupted. They were
Yes, it
so
did.
like satisfied with that, and we all reacted. I think the same way Thor did. He's like, I knew it.
Yeah.
Like, he moved it in Age of Ultron. That's why. That's what it was. It's like very sort of satisfying thing to have that pay off, because I think a lot of people were speculating for years. Why did it move? And that was why.
And I feel like, well, first off, that was the movie that I've seen the most in the theater, which I saw it 3 times. I don't really rewatch things in the theater very often because there's just too many things to watch.
Yeah,
But every time, even when I was at it, like this was like 10 weeks in, I went on like a Tuesday night for $5 movies at AMC, and people still cheered, and there was like 20 people in the theater. So like, still hits. But that's also one of my favorite like theories is like, could Cap pick it up the whole time and just didn't want to embarrass Thor, or was he not worthy yet? But
I
he
think
was
it's the
like,
first. I think it is the first one.
and it's just like that moment just hits because, like, it's framed so perfectly. You see Mjolnir getting lifted up, but you don't see who's holding it. And then
Yeah,
all of a sudden it happens, and yeah, that place went nuts.
yeah,
Like, nuts. And there's so many moments like that in that movie. I think for a whole generation of people, I don't think there's going to be many cinematic experiences that's going to top that. To be
yeah.
honest, just the whole entire theater packed for like the first 3 weeks that was out because just so many people going to see that again and again and again.
Yeah.
Now, expectations are a big thing when you go into a movie and stuff like that. But what's a film that really exceeded your expectations?
Free Guy. The film just came out only a couple of years ago. Because I remember just reading the premise and thinking, that's kind of a neat idea for a premise. It's probably just going to going to be a bunch of gags for like the first 20 minutes, and then it's just going to be like, yes, generic sort of hero's journey kind of thing, or getting the girl or something. And it kind of has those things, but it does it does a lot more sort of interesting things with the video game mechanics, and also the programming of video games as well. Like the reveal at the end of what really Guy's character actually is. I think that very clever. I didn't expect so much of a focus on people in the human world as well, and the sort of industry of the way things work with them, and of course the Jodie Comer character, her arc as well. So there was a lot more sort of interesting character stuff than I was expecting there to be, and all the sort of video game based gags of him being a character in a game and not realizing it. They all worked like really well, I thought. And also Jacksepticeye was in it. It's another, going back to the previous question, that was another great moment for me in the cinema, just when he showed up. I just laughed at that.
It's just, I remember seeing the trailer. I'm like, this is a fun movie. And then during COVID, I saw that at a drive-in, and just the whole entire experience of it was just like, I needed some joy like this in the middle of all of this. It's surprising heart. And like obviously, Free Guy's the reason why Sean Levy got the Deadpool and Wolverine gig. Like almost 100%.
Yeah.
And like all the fun cameos, even if they're like voice cameos from people.
Yeah.
And then, Channing Tatum, which was
it was a weird one, that moment. Yeah.
That was so random. I give Channing Tatum a lot of credit for being willing to do basically anything for a movie. Because between that and This Is the End, he has some very unforgettable cameos, at least I'll say. But no, and then the whole fight at the end goes like full blown. It's like, this definitely is a Disney movie now, owned by Disney and not just Fox. It's a fun time, and sometimes we just need some fun movies like that to enjoy. And yeah, it does have a lot more to it than I thought was going to be happening as well. Now, I don't know how much of a reader you are. This is always an interesting question because not everybody is. But what's a written work that you would love to see adapted into a film?
It's one of the Narnia books, The Horse and His Boy. It's basically almost kind of like fan fiction written by the original author, because it's like sort of something that takes place within the timeline of the first book, Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Basically, towards the end of the book, of course, they spend years and years in Narnia as kings and queens, and this is just something that happens while they're kings and queens.
Yeah.
So basically, it's not actually about children from our world. It's about children within, not from Narnia, but within the world that Narnia is in, and they travel across the desert towards Narnia. I guess from a part of the world that just does not have magic or talking animals. And it's basically like a sort of coming of age story for these two kids called Shasta and Aravis. Aravis is trying to run away from her father, and Shasta basically has discovered that he has no father and is just trying to find somewhere else. And they travel across the desert with these two talking horses called Bree and Quinn. So it might be a difficult thing to adapt into a film because you've got two talking horses as the main characters as well. But yeah, it's just the sort of things that they get up to and the stuff they discover about themselves along the way. It's a really interesting sort of arc that the character of Shasta goes on in particular. And the Pevensey kids are in it as well as adults. You get a sort of slightly different sort of window into the kind of people that they become while they're in Narnia. And Mr. Tumnus is in it just to sort of like a little sort of side character, I suppose, just helping them out. We get to know about this other sort of fantasy-like colony called Arkenland, and the king and the prince of that play quite an important role later on. It hasn't aged well, actually. There's a lot of stuff that's kind of a bit stereotypical now about like Middle Eastern culture and everything. I don't think it could be adapted exactly the way it is now. I don't think that would fly now. Some of the things that they say or they do. And there's also a wizard at the end who's quite a sort of interesting kind of character, the kind of the stuff that he comes out with. Aslan is not in it very much. He shows up just at the very end, which I kind of like, really. I sort of feel like Aslan just sort of I don't know, he feels a bit too sort of convenient because he's basically God. He just turns up and sort of fixes everything. But yeah, it's a really, really good book. Read it many times. It's my favorite of the Narnia books. And I would love to see it made into a film.
It's such an inch because like I'm a big fan of the Narnia series too. It's such an interesting dynamic because like that was the like third film and like third book in like the series and stuff when they put it that way. And obviously they conveniently just leapfrogged that when they were making the films originally because
Yeah,
I feel like nobody remembers the Voyage of the Dawn Treader actually became a movie. Um, but it
I hate
exists.
that movie. It's a terrible
I
film.
I didn't say it was good. I'm just saying most people don't realize it existed. Because I
Yeah,
feel like the first like, Lion the Witch and the Wardrobe was a big thing. And
yeah,
then Prince Caspian kind of lost some of the magic in terms of like excitement. And then it was like a few years it took until they made the other one that I feel like most people don't realize it exists. I feel like you put that in like the same boat as Shrek Forever After and the fourth Pirates movie, where most people were like, there was another one, and
yeah.
most people don't realize they exist. And it's interesting what they'll do with Greta Gerwig taking the reins at Netflix for Chronicles of
Oh,
Narnia, if they'll make
hmm.
actually all seven books into whatever series of films that they're doing. So we'll have to see. But
Yeah,
I
we'll
would
see.
love at some point to actually, get a film series where they adapt all of them. That'd be
Yeah.
pretty cool. So we shall see. Now, talking, if you go to the movies, you spend a lot of time watching trailers. And trailers wind up, some of them hitting the internet, becoming giant things. But, John, what's your favorite movie trailer?
This is a tricky one for me because I typically don't watch trailers very much now because
Mhm.
they're just massive spoilers. They just show the whole
Yep.
movie. But I do like the Alien one, the one for Alien that came out like years and years ago.
Yeah.
There's just like it captures like the tone of the film like perfectly. This sort of like the music they have in the background of just running and running
Yeah.
away, and sort of giving you quite a good idea of like exactly what the threat or the danger of the whole film is going to be, but not really knowing exactly what it is. But maybe what its threat is. It's going to kill them
Yeah.
basically. It's I've always kind of thought it's basically just a haunted house film, and I think the trailer captures that really well. But it also gives you an idea that it's not just a generic sort of running away from monsters
Yeah.
sort of thing, but there's also a little bit more to it of kind of having to be a little bit smart about defeating it, and the threat almost being like not being able to see it, and the fear being caused by that. And obviously, the chest bursting scene is not in the trailer because
Good.
if it would have
Because it
made this
should
now, it definitely would be, wouldn't it?
It definitely would. That would be the stinger at the end of the trailer
Yeah.
if it released today, for sure. Oh, that's such an iconic trailer, and it's so iconic that they keep recycling like the siren like music stuff from it in the Prometheus trailer and in the
Yeah.
Romulus trailer, and they keep doing it again and again because it works so well. And of course, they got that tagline in space, nobody can hear you scream, which is like an all-time tagline too. But no, that trailer is so
Yeah.
perfect. It's so funny because even trailers back then would give away a ton of stuff occasionally too. Like I don't know if you've ever watched the Psycho trailer, which is basically like Alfred Hitchcock walking around the set being like, and this is where a murder happens. Like, dude, like shut up.
Yeah, true.
But like it's so interesting how trailers have evolved. But yeah, I do not watch trailers unless I'm in a theater at this point where I'm
Yeah.
like physically there and they're playing in front of me. I am very tempted to watch the new Nosferatu trailer that dropped yesterday as
Okay.
we're recording, but I kind of want to wait to see it in a theater and see how that hits me in a theater. Now, the next couple have to do with music. Now, what's your favorite use of like an actual song put into a movie?
I think I'm going to go back to Free Guy. Actually, I think it's Miley Cyrus "Wrecking Ball," just because I think that was just like such a perfect moment to put it in there.
There's
It doesn't really like add anything to the atmosphere or the tone of the film. I think that's just such a great gag. I laughed out loud when they did that.
I love when you can throw in a song that'll just get a laugh out of you while you're watching a movie because it's so unexpected. And you could definitely tell Ryan Reynolds and Sean Levy love to do stuff like that because, in what world should Like a Prayer be in a Deadpool movie? But it was. And
Yeah.
then I know they just released the whole intro credits online in HD, so but I'm not gonna mention the song, but like the song from the beginning of Deadpool and Wolverine during the credits was also a fun choice. But no, that Sean Levy had that kind of vibe going on for Free Guy. And they just kept reusing Fantasy by Mariah Carey so much for that movie too. It's like its unofficial theme song, but like being able to get like a good laugh out of like unexpected uses of music. Now, John, I don't know if you're the kind of person that'll sit and just listen to film scores, but what's if you're going to like sit down and listen to a movie score, what's that score going to be?
I'm going to have to go with two because I could not decide between these two. Superman, the John Williams
Mhm.
score, and Back to the Future.
Yep,
So I've answered two of the questions with Free Guy, and I've answered two of them with Back to the Future. A bit repetitive, I guess.
it's all good. Um, that Superman theme is perfect.
Yeah.
Like I know, and like the Hans Zimmer music for like Man of Steel, like the flight scene really worked, but like I don't think you're ever gonna have like a better theme song for Superman than that John Williams theme. It
Yeah.
just somehow in like the core of it just really captures like that vibe that you would expect from like Superman kind of thing,
It
and it
just
really works.
envisions greatness, I think, doesn't it?
Yep. And also they've used it so I just remember they used that for a montage in a like one of those recap episodes of Seinfeld. I'm a big Seinfeld fan, and they had
Okay.
like a whole entire montage, and like George is running through the streets of New York triumphantly to like the Superman theme song.
Oh my God.
It's just like, of course they would. And then the Piece of the Future theme is so good. It works so perfectly with that film and like the whole climax where
Yeah.
with like a clock tower and everything.
I think that the clock tower chase is the only time in the first film that it's used. Actually, it's not in the opening credits at all.
Mhm. And it's become iconic and it really works. And also another great use of music is Power of Love for Back to the Future.
Yep.
They really nailed that. Like and what makes it even better is the fact that they have the Huey Lewis playing the uptight judge in the
I, I've
Battle
always
of the
I've always
Bands
thought
contest.
I have always wondered if they wanted to cast him in the most ironic role imaginable. You know, they're playing his song and he's like, "You're too loud." I just
Uh,
love that.
the fun little references you get when you get the references.
Yeah.
To go Captain America, I got that reference
Yeah.
for sure. And now, my last question for you, which is how I like to phrase you know what really grinds my gears question. And what is one thing that you wish that movies would stop doing?
Okay, so I don't think there's a name for this particular trope, so I'm gonna have to just
Okay.
describe it. You know that bit in Silence of the Lambs where the FBI are ringing a doorbell, and you see
Oh,
Buffalo Bill down in the cellar, and his bell is ringing, and then he answers the door, and it's Clarice, and the FBI are at someone else's house. I was
yep.
like, that was quite clever when I saw it in Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
Now movies keep doing it. They keep just editing in a clever sort of way to make you think that one thing is going on, but no,
Yep.
no, it was something else. It's like I think it's just cheap, because you're only it's only a twist because of the way you've edited it. It's nothing to do
Yep.
with the things the characters are thinking or the progression of the story. It's just the way that you've shown it. You've manipulated
Mhm.
me to think something, and I feel cheated after a while when you keep doing that.
Well, and yes, in Silence of the Lambs, that hits hard. And because I feel like the feeling is like you see Clarice at your door and you're just like, oh shit. You just realize like the gravity of the situation that she's in. But no, when movies keep doing it, And that's the thing. Usually when it was done the first time, it was a great idea. And then people are like, that was a great idea. Let's do it too. And unless you're doing it like for a gag or to like lampoon it or something like that, if you just keep doing the same thing over and over again, it does lose. And then it lose what impact that it has. Because yes, movies will do that. And you're just like, come on.
Yeah,
It's like somebody watched Silence of the Lambs a lot
yeah,
before they wrote this.
yeah.
But no, that's definitely one of those kinds of things where it's just like, see, one filmmaker did it great, and then everybody's like, well, let's do that one. It's just like
Yeah.
it only worked once.
Yeah.
But now, John, thank you so much for playing along. And how I like to wrap up my show is have my guests ask me a question. So, what would you like to ask the Wasteland Reviewer?
What is you say you haven't seen trailers actually, so this might be difficult to answer, but what is something that you've seen in a trailer that you just wish you could have forgotten about until you saw the movie?
Oh God. There's probably a few that I can think of specifically. I'm trying to think like of recent films. I think if they could have pulled this off and sold this with Spider-Man No Way Home, because the only reason they included like the villains in the trailer was because Alfred Molina yapped that he was in the movie,
Oh, really?
which like put him in the same corner as Mark Ruffalo and Tom Holland, who don't know when to shut the hell up
Oh
and
dear.
not say anything. But I really wish that because like obviously they got through the whole entire campaign almost without even referencing the fact that there might be other heroes in it.
Oh yeah.
Because there was
Yeah.
that one international trailer where the lizard gets punched in the face by nothing. Because they didn't cut it early enough. Then people are like, look, there was Spider-Man. And of course it's, you know, who winds up being in the movie. But I really wish that I didn't know Doc Ock and the Green Goblin were back
Right.
for Spider-Man No Way Home because I feel like Marvel only knows how to do this when they really want to do this. Like somehow Endgame gave away nothing.
Yeah, true.
Like
They were
those
very good at
trailers
that.
gave away nothing. And they're just like, people are going to see this anyway, so they feel like the need to show
It was
anything.
it was the one movie that did not need a trailer at all.
No, we the ending of Infinity War was a trailer. Just like I need to know what happens. But Marvel does this a lot, and it's a part of trying to get the wider audience. And it just the No Way Home trailer. I feel like they felt like their hands were forced, but like if they just alluded to the conflict with Doctor Strange, which is like the first act of the movie, and alluded to some bigger threat, I think it would have worked out better. But I don't think Marvel's complaining because they made a shit ton of money. So
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I think they're fine. But no, that's probably the one that I think about the most, to be honest. And maybe a quick side one was Multiverse of Madness. I wish they didn't show any of the Illuminati because like I know they show like Professor X rolling up there and stuff like that, and you're just like, did you need to put this in the trailer? And also from context of that movie, for like 10 minutes. So like, did they really need to put the trailer? But I guess it's just mostly Marvel bothering me lately with
Yeah.
their trailers and stuff like that, which as of now, I don't feel like the Brave New World or the Thunderbolts trailer have given away too much yet. So we'll
Okay.
have to see. But they have plenty of time to do so. Um, but no, that was a good question because like that's such an interesting conversation to have nowadays is with trailers and stuff like that. As I sit the rest of today, I'll probably think of like 50 other examples of trailers. I'm like, I really wish they didn't show that.
Yeah.
They do it all the time.
It's unbelievable the kind of things they put in trailers now.
I could have just said anything Sony releases because, to be perfectly frank, um, I'm just remembering back to Amazing Spider-Man 2 and the insane amount of stuff that they gave away in trailers for that movie, which was ridiculous. But anyway, John, thank you so much for coming on and chatting these with me.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
And thank all of you out there for always tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Review.